Okay, so we are back to our discussion of the novel Saraswativijayam by Potheri Kunyambu. I think yesterday or the last class we had stopped we had stopped where we were discussing the Smartha Vijaram of the Nambudiri's daughter Subhadra. So Kubera Nambudiri ചെയ്ത ക്രൈമിനെ പറ്റിയൊക്കെ നമ്മൾ പറഞ്ഞു and how he's trying to escape from that. At the same time, because he had a lot of enemies, many of them were also coming together to conspire against his daughter Subhadra. And one of those enemies was one Parameshwaran Pattar, who was loyal, not loyal exactly, but he was somebody who used to help the Nambudiri initially with all his works, and he used to accompany the Nambudiri wherever he went, and he used to mediate between people of other castes and the Nambudiri. But when the Nambudiri started favoring Kuppan Pattar, Parameshwaran Pattar lost his position in the Nambudiri's household, or rather in his inner circle, and he was angry with the Nambudiri because of that. Then there was Kumba, who was Subhadra's maid, and Kumba was somebody who had she had a reputation as an immoral woman. And initially Subhadra was very patient with her, but then she had to dismiss Kumba from her service. Because of that, Kumba also had problems with Subhadra. So Parameshwaran Pattar and Kumba got together. They actually got into a relationship, and they started spreading rumors that the Nambudiri's daughter Subhadra was actually an immoral woman. And because of this, many other Nambudiris who also had problems with Kubera Nambudiri got together, and they organized this Smartha Vijaram, as a result of which Subhadra was excommunicated. So Subhadra's husband Yajnan Nambudiri actually loved her a lot and wanted to support her, but he was unable to do so. He didn't know what to do. And because Kubera Nambudiri was not around, there was nobody to spend much money or generally try to get things done in a proper way. So Subhadra and her 3 children were excommunicated. And this is where we had stopped the narration in the last class. But normally in many കഴിഞ്ഞ ക്ലാസ്സിൽ ഞാൻ പരിണയം ഫിലിമിനെ പറ്റി പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ടായിരുന്നു. അപ്പൊ അതിലൊക്കെ നമ്മൾ കാണുന്ന ഒരു സംഭവമാണ് when a Nambudiri woman is excommunicated, then she will no longer be accepted into any Nambudiri family. Like no Nambudiris will want to be in a they will not want to have her as part of their family. They will not want to even interact with her. So that was the kind of situation that these Nambudiri women faced at that time. But other men from other communities would sometimes try to take them away or things like that. And these women, if they didn't do that, they would be completely helpless. So that was a very scary thought for the Nambudiri women of those times. But in Subhadra's case, what happened was that when she and her children were thrown out into the streets, all sorts of people came and started looking at her, because this was the first time. It was only in these kind of rare occasions that the Nambudiri women would come out of the house. Otherwise they were called Andarjanam, which means people who stay inside the house. So everybody was very curious and they were looking at her, and Subhadra was very upset about that. She was feeling humiliated. She was worried about her children. But suddenly she was approached by a strange man. He was a white man, and Kunyambu describes that he was wearing pants and a completely different kind of outfit than what everybody had seen before. So this white man was none other than a German padre or padri. He was basically a priest, a missionary priest. He was a German priest, and he felt very compassionate towards Subhadra. He realized that this woman and her children are going to be in trouble, so he wanted to help them. So he took Subhadra and her children away and took them to his missionary and started looking after them, and he even started giving them education. Subhadra was somebody who was already well versed in Sanskrit and Malayalam, so she very quickly started learning English from the German missionary. And very soon she was able to both read and write as well as speak English very well. And therefore, the German missionary gave her a school teacher's job in one of the mission schools. And her children were also they were also allowed to join those schools and make use of missionary education. So this is what happens to Subhadra and her 3 children. And then she is no longer part of the story for a little while. Now we come back to Kuberan Nambudiri and Kuppan Pattar, who had escaped. They had gone to Kozhikode for the Nambudiri to have a kind of deposition in front of a government officials to talk about, to discuss the management of temples. നമ്മൾ ഇന്നലെ കഴിഞ്ഞ ക്ലാസ്സിൽ പറഞ്ഞിരുന്നു, temples were used to be under the Brahmins, and the government was trying to convince them to give up the right to the temple so that the government can administer the temples directly, and whatever offerings are taken in the temple, they can be used, whatever money comes in the form of offerings can be used for the welfare of the people as a whole, not just of the Brahmin community. But the Nambudiri did not allow, he was completely against it, and he was feeling very arrogant about it when the government official was asking him questions and asking for proof. He was saying that all the proof is in the Manusmriti. He was quoting a lot of scriptures, and he was saying that this is the proof that we Nambudiris are supposed to be in charge of the temples and nobody else should be in charge of it. And all those things happened. And for all these reasons, from Kannur they had gone to Kozhikode, and it was when they were in Kozhikode that they get letters telling them what is happening in their village. On the one hand, Subhadra has been excommunicated, Bhrashta kalpichu Subhadrake. The second thing is that there is a police case against both the Nambudiri and this fellow who had beaten this Pulaya boy, Ramanguti, Ramanguti, and Ramanguti was arrested, and the Nambudiri was not in Kannur. That is the only reason why he was not arrested. As soon as he comes back, he would be arrested. So he and Kuppan Pattar are very scared, and they decide to escape from there. And they don't know where to go, so they decided they will go to Thiruvananthapuram, because they think that the Travancore Raja, they are in Malabar now, and Malabar was under the administration of the British presidency in those days, even though there were some local kings and all, but still they decided that they will go to Thiruvananthapuram, because they thought that the king of Travancore is much more kinder towards Brahmins, towards Hindus in general and Brahmins in particular, because a lot of Brahmins had influential positions under the governance of the Travancore Maharaja. So they decide to go to Travancore, and as they are traveling, we can see a lot of hardships that they go through. They are very scared because, again, they have never been in a position. The Nambudiri has never been in a position where he has not had so many people, servants and slaves and other people to take care of all his needs. But now he is all alone with just Kuppan Pattar, and they have to sleep on the ground, and they have to basically take care of everything themselves. So he's very scared, and we can also see in the description that he's scared of everybody. He is when they are going, so their plan is from Kozhikode they will go to Pattambi, and from there they will try to take a train to Thiruvananthapuram. That is the plan. But as they are traveling, they have to rest at a certain place, and they rest in Kondoti. And Nambudiri is very scared because he has heard some horror stories about the Maplas of Kondoti, and he thinks that they are very cruel people, because he has never stepped out of his house before, and he has never stepped out of Lam without any servant. So he's very scared that all other communities will come and beat him up or do something to him. Knows that nobody knows their identity. They are wearing shirt and mundu, and they are wearing turbans and all, but still they are very scared. And then later, they are also scared that if they go to some other place, they are worried that tribal people will come and attack them. So they're scared of everybody. Anyway, they go on like that, and they move towards they move towards Patandi. So on the way, and they are also very hungry. They don't have money with them, and if they reach a particular place, they can request the Nambudiri's brother Hari Jayantan to send them money. But right now it is too risky. First of all, എങ്ങോട്ട് അയക്കും പൈസ എന്നുള്ളതിന്റെ പ്രശ്നമുണ്ട്. രണ്ടാമത് ഇയാൾക്ക് പൈസ അയച്ചു എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ ഇയാളെ അന്വേഷിച്ച് വന്നിട്ട് പിടിക്കാൻ സാധ്യതയുണ്ട്. അതുകൊണ്ട് പൈസ ഒന്നും അധികം ഇല്ല. അവരെങ്ങനെയോ കഷ്ടപ്പെട്ടിട്ടാണ് അവർ പോകുന്നത്. Then they reach a place called a Choultry. Choultry. Choultry is a kind of a place where Brahmins are given a feast, or rather they are fed, feeding Brahmins ritually. That happens. So usually what happens is that some rich person, maybe a Brahmin, maybe a non-Brahmin, he would give these kind of annadanam, or that kind of feeding, ritual feeding to lots of Brahmins on different days, and that is supposed to be for the spirits of his ancestors. ഇയാളുടെ ആൻസിസ്റ്റേഴ്സിന്റെ ആത്മാക്കൾക്ക് ശാന്തി കിട്ടാൻ വേണ്ടി എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ടാണ് ഇയാൾ സെറ്റപ്പ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. അപ്പൊ അങ്ങനത്തെ ചില ആളുകൾ സെറ്റപ്പ് ചെയ്താണ് ഓരോ നാട്ടിലെ ഓരോ ചോൾട്രി സെറ്റപ്പ് ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. So these people go there, and they realize that if you are a Brahmin, you will be able to have free food from there. അങ്ങനെ അവർ ഈ ചോൾട്രിയിലേക്ക് പോവാണ്. This ചോൾട്രി was set up by a person called Chudalagatha Kunyikrishna Menoki. He was a person who set up this thing, and initially he had a lot of money. This Mr. Menoki, he had a lot of money, and he used to conduct this kind of feeding of Brahmins ritually. But after he died, whatever money he had, he said that should be used to feed Brahmins. But again and again, more and more people came and told his descendants that you can't stop this custom just because this person died. You have to keep on doing this, otherwise the ancestors' spirits will never get any peace. So they had to keep on doing that, and that is how a lot of choultries are set up. And there's a lot of discussion about these choultries as a kind of custom from an earlier age, and Kunyambu talks about why this system comes into being. So this is again something that we can see in this novel, this kind of diversions away from the main plot into certain kinds of social customs. He wants to describe those things, and he wants to talk about it. He wants to give us his opinion about those. So he says that in long ago, during the time of kings, these choultries had a certain function, because the people who were only interested in learning would not be interested in gaining material wealth. So in order to support them, somebody should support them. Somebody should be able to help them, and many of them would be traveling. And it is only through travel that they can actually increase their learning. And it is in order to help and support these scholars, these people who love education, who love to learn, that these choultries were initially set up. But what happened was that these Brahmins arrogated all learning to themselves. They started saying that other people, they started saying that they have a monopoly. Their community has a monopoly over learning, and that other communities should not even try to learn. And therefore, these kind of choultries started catering only to Brahmins. They started helping only Brahmins. And that is how the custom came about. And when our Nambudiri, Kubera Nambudiri, goes to this choultry with Kuppan Bhattar, we can see in the discussion between Kubera Nambudiri and Kuppan Bhattar that even though both of them are Brahmins, Kubera Nambudiri is a Malayali Brahmin and Kuppan Bhattar is a Tamil Brahmin. Even though both of them are Brahmins, Kuppan Bhattar is actually not at all educated. He doesn't know the Vedas or anything, and he is only interested in material benefits. Like, he's basically a merchant. He wants to make money. But Kubera Nambudiri, even though he's ignorant in so many other ways, he has learned the Vedas and he considers himself a scholar. So he's ignorant As far as modern education is concerned, he is ignorant. As far as modern customs are concerned, he's also a very superstitious person. He follows all kinds of evil social customs. All that is true, but still he is an educated person as far as Sanskrit education and Vedas are concerned. And when he goes to this chol tree, he realizes that most of the other Brahmins who come there are able to come there only because they have a sacred thread. They are born of a Brahmin mother. That is the only reason they can come. They are not scholars. They haven't learned the Vedas. Most of them can only recite the Gayatri mantra. They don't know any other scriptures or anything. So just because they belong to a particular community, they are able to come there and enjoy this feast. So that is also something that we get to see. Anyway, so this is one occasion where Kunyambu talks about this particular social custom of, feeding Brahmins in the chol trees. Then they, after resting there and having food there, they move on, and then they go to Patambi and they decide to board a train. So on the way, they meet many different people from different communities and different classes, and they listen to all kinds of conversation. So from here, we can see that the Nambudiri, even though he has done something very evil, he has actually committed a crime and he is fleeing for his life. Slowly from this point, we can see that he comes into contact with people from different communities, and he starts getting a little, initially he was scared of other people. മറ്റ് കമ്മ്യൂണിറ്റീസിലെ ആളുകളെ പേടിയായിരുന്നു ഇയാൾക്ക്. പക്ഷെ പതുക്കെ പതുക്കെ മറ്റ് കമ്മ്യൂണിറ്റീസിലെ ആളുകളുമായി ഒരു കോണ്ടാക്ട് വന്ന് ഈ നമ്പൂതിരി ചെറുതായിട്ട് അയാളുടെ ക്യാരക്ടർ മാറുന്നത് നമുക്ക് കാണാം. ഹി സ്റ്റാർട്ട്സ് ടു ലേൺ ത്രൂ എക്സ്പീരിയൻസ്. അത് നമുക്ക് പതുക്കെ പതുക്കെ കാണാൻ പറ്റും ഇവിടെ മുതൽ. സോ എനിവേ, ആസ് ദേ ആർ ട്രാവലിംഗ്, ദേ മീറ്റ് ടു മെൻ, ആൻഡ് they are actually two Nayar men. One person is called Ikkappa Menon, and the other person is called Eradi. These two people are conversing, and Eradi tells Ikkappa Menon to give him 2 annas. Anna is a kind of coin of that time. Give me 2 annas, I'm very thirsty, he says. So Ikkappa Menon says, why do you want so much money? If you want some tender coconut juice, then you can get it for much less. But from their conversation, it is clear that Eradi actually wants to go and have alcohol. So Ikkappa Menon says, I will not give you any alcohol because I know the evils of alcohol. And from here now, the conversation goes into a very detailed description of the evils of alcohol. This is also something that Kunyambu, it is a kind of diversion that Kunyambu takes, that the novelist takes, but it is also important because it helps to, educate the Nambudiri in certain ways and to change his mode of thinking in certain ways. So the story that Ikkappa Menon says is that he used to be a very good person who would never drink any alcohol, and however, when he got a job, we realized that Eradi and Ikkappa Menon are both government officials. When Ikkappa Menon got a government job, his friends started calling him to go out with them to restaurants and all, and then after a while he realized that they are taking him to a bar, and his friends all used to drink, but Ikkappa Menon never drank. And they used to initially ask him to drink, but he used to say no. After a while they stopped persuading him, but when they went to a bar, he would stand outside. So after a while his friend said, you don't have to drink, but why don't you come and sit inside? And then he started doing that. After a while his friend said, you don't have to drink, but why don't you have some of the food here? They have good food here, why don't you eat some of the food? So he started eating that food. Then one day, one friend said, it is this food will be very spicy, so he wanted to actually have some water, but he was ashamed of asking for water in a bar. So his friend said, why don't you have some lemonade, some lemon juice? And he started having that. Next day, his friend said, yesterday you had lemon juice, today I will give you a new kind of juice. And they bought him wine, and he tasted it and he liked it. And then slowly he started having different types of alcohol. He became an alcoholic. He became completely into alcohol. He started spending all his money on alcohol. He got into debts. His family started rejecting him, and he got into a lot of trouble. So Ikapa Menon says, this is a past that I had, and then it took me a lot of time, and it was very difficult for me to actually leave that bad habit of alcoholism. And now I have completely stopped drinking, but it was a very difficult thing to do. So I will not give you any money to drink alcohol. So this is a story that Ikapa Menon says. After listening to this story, our Kuberan Nambudiri, അവർ ഒരുമിച്ച് ട്രാവൽ ചെയ്യാണല്ലോ, അപ്പൊ ഇയാൾ പറയുന്ന കഥ കേട്ടപ്പോൾ കുബേരൻ നമ്പൂതിരിക്ക് ഒരു കഥ ഓർമ്മ വന്നു. And Kuberan Nambudiri talks to Ikkappa Menon and says, your story reminds me of another story, but this is a story about corruption. So he says this is something very interesting that government officials. So this is the first time also that Kuberan Nambudiri is interacting so closely with government officials. Okay. So he says, I have heard about a story of a government official, and he was a very good official. There's one official, he was a very good man, and he would never take any bribe. And he was actually, he got transferred to a particular place. And one day, a person came, a farmer came with a few homegrown vegetables. He brought it in a basket and gave it to the official. The official said, are you trying to bribe me? Don't give me any of those things. I will not take them. But this man said, no, I am not trying to bribe you. This is our custom. If anybody new comes, we will go and give him something like this. That is all. I am not trying to bribe you. And the government official's mother was there. He said, no, why are you refusing him? After all, he brought it, so let us accept it. So he accepted it. And then as time went on, this man started bringing him more and more such things. And it was never, this government official convinced himself that because he was not accepting it as a bribe, but rather as a gift, it was okay. And as time went on, this man became closer and closer to that government official's family. The farmer became very close. He started bringing them more and more things. Sometimes he would bring them so many vegetables that they can't finish it, and then they will go and sell it. So they also started profiting from the gifts of this farmer. And after a while, this man came and told the government officials, he gave a recommendation about some case. This government official is a magistrate, he's a kind of judge, and he was actually a munsif, he's a munsif. And this farmer started, in a particular case, the farmer came and said, this person is actually a good person, so you shouldn't punish him. He suggested those things. And because the farmer by then had become so close to the munsif took his opinion, and he did not punish that man. And then later, that man brought him some gifts. And again, because he did not take the gift before giving the judgment, the munsif thought it is okay, it is just a gift, and he accepted that gift. And slowly, the farmer started having the ability to influence the munsif, and he started taking bribes from other people, and he started influencing the munsif, and the munsif also started taking bribes from different clients. So ആദ്യമൊക്കെ ഞാൻ ബ്രൈബായിട്ട് എടുക്കില്ല, മറ്റുള്ളവര് അയാൾ പറഞ്ഞ ഒരു അയാളുടേതായിട്ടുള്ള രീതിയിൽ അയാള് കേസ് എല്ലാം ജഡ്ജ് ചെയ്യും. അതിനുശേഷം ആരെങ്കിലും ഗിഫ്റ്റ് കൊണ്ടു തന്നാൽ അയാള് അത് വാങ്ങും. അങ്ങനെയാക്കി മാറ്റി. പിന്നീട് ഈ ഫാർമർ പറയുന്നത് അനുസരിച്ച് ഇയാള് കേസുകളെല്ലാം വളച്ചൊടിക്കാൻ തുടങ്ങി. എന്നിട്ട് അവര് തരുന്ന ഗിഫ്റ്റ് ആക്സെപ്റ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ തുടങ്ങി. ആഫ്റ്റർ സം ടൈം ഗിഫ്റ്റ് കൊണ്ടുവന്ന് തന്നാൽ മാത്രമേ ഞാൻ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഫേവറബിൾ ആയിട്ടുള്ള ജഡ്ജ്മെന്റ് തരൂ എന്ന് വരെ ഇയാൾ പറയാൻ തുടങ്ങി. ബിക്കേം എ കറപ്റ്റ് ഒഫീഷ്യൽ. Then what he started doing is, with any case, he started taking money from both the sides. രണ്ട് സൈഡ് ഉണ്ടാവുമല്ലോ ഒരു കേസിൽ. അപ്പൊ ഒരു സൈഡിൽ ആളോട് പറയും, നിങ്ങൾ എനിക്ക് ഇത്രയും പൈസ തന്നാൽ ഈ കേസ് നിങ്ങൾക്ക് വിജയിക്കാൻ ഞാൻ സഹായിക്കാം. മറ്റ് സൈഡിൽ ആളോട് പറയും, നിങ്ങൾ എനിക്ക് ഇത്രയും പൈസ തന്നാൽ നിങ്ങൾ ജയിക്കില്ല, പക്ഷെ ഞാൻ ഈ കേസിനെ പറ്റി എന്ത് റെക്കോർഡിൽ എഴുതുന്നോ അതനുസരിച്ചാണ് അപ്പീലിൽ പോവുക. അപ്പീലിൽ പോകുമ്പോൾ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ജയിക്കാൻ പറ്റും, ആ രീതിയിൽ ഞാൻ എഴുതി തരാം എന്ന് പറയും. അങ്ങനെ ഇയാള് രണ്ട് സൈഡ് നിന്നിട്ട് ഇയാളൊരു വളരെ കറപ്റ്റ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു ഒഫീഷ്യലായിട്ട് മാറുകയാണ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. So this is a story that Kuberan Nambudiri says, and the similarity between both stories is it is very clear, because in the case of this Ikkappa Menon, who initially said he will not even touch alcohol and later became an alcoholic, slowly, thinking that every step is a small step and it is okay. This is a kind of slippery slope, a kind of problem in reasoning where you say that, okay, this is a small, mistake and that is okay. Similarly, that is what happened with this government official in the story told by Kubera Nambudiri, who was a very good man, but later he, through these kind of very small steps, he ultimately ended up becoming a very horribly corrupted official. So anyway, after sharing these stories, they continue on their journey. But somehow, instead of going to Tirudangur, they realize that, okay, when they arrive in Tirudangur, it will be the time for a festival called Murajabam. Murajabam എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ടൊരു ഫെസ്റ്റിവലിന്റെ സമയമാവും എന്ന്, അതൊരു സെറിമണിയാണ്. അതിന് ഒരുപാട് ബ്രാഹ്മിൻസ് തിരുവിതാംകൂറിലേക്ക് വരുന്നുണ്ടാവും. അപ്പൊ ആ സമയത്ത് പോയാൽ നമ്മളെ പരിചയമുള്ള പല ആൾക്കാരും അവിടെ വരാൻ സാധ്യത ഉണ്ട് എന്ന് ഇവർക്ക് മനസ്സിലാവും. Therefore they change their plan, and instead of going to Tirudangur, they go to Madras, and then they first go to Rameshwaram and such places, and then they go to Rameshwaram, the Tirunelveli, Srirangam, and then they go to Madras. And after staying in Madras for a while, they realize that police are even coming from Malabar to Madras, from Kannur to Madras, to search for our Kubera Nambudiri, and they escape from there also. And then they go to different places. They go to Bombay, stay a few days in Bombay, and then finally they end up in Kashi. So Kubera Nambudiri and Kuppan Pattar end up in Kashi. And when they are in Kashi, they meet a very scholarly man, another person, another Brahmin called Shivadas Pandit. And Shivadas Pandit is very much, he is impressed with the scholarly nature of Kubera Nambudiri, and he offers that Kubera Nambudiri and Kuppan Pattar can stay with Shivadas Pandit. So they start to stay with him, and then they give this address to secretly to the Hari Jayantan, that is Kubera Nambudiri's brother, and they Hari Jayantan is able to send them some money, but somehow they settle down in Kashi. But now, like this, 15 years pass now. So there is a big break here. And for 15 years, they live in peace in Kashi, in the house of Shivadas Pandit. But after that, what happens is that, so the case is kind of still going on in Malabar. Iyale annveshikkunnundu, and nammade Ramankutti is in jail. He has been put in jail, but police are still searching for our Kubera Nambudiri, but they have not found him. So nobody knows where he is, and he is living secretly in Kashi. But one day, the planter Joseph goes to Kashi. Now, who is Joseph? If you remember, he is the planter who was the employer of the Pulaya boy Marathan, who had been supposedly killed by Ramankutti on the word of Kubera Nambudiri. So Kubera Nambudiri karanam കൊല്ലപ്പെട്ടു എന്ന് അങ്ങനെ പറയുന്ന ആ മരത്തൻ വർക്ക് ചെയ്തിരുന്നത് ഈ ജോസഫ് എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ഒരു യൂറോപ്യൻ പ്ലാന്ററിന്റെ അടുത്താണ്. ആൻഡ് ഹി വാസ് സംബഡി ഹു വാസ് വെരി മച്ച് ഇൻവോൾവ് ഇൻ ദിസ് കേസ് ഓൾസോ, ബിക്കോസ് ഹി വാസ് വെരി ഫോണ്ട് ഓഫ് മരത്തൻ. ആൻഡ് ജോസഫ് ദ പ്ലാന്റർ goes to Kashi one day after 15 years to meet a European friend of his. So when he goes to the house of this European, suddenly he comes across Shivadas Pandit, Kubera Nambudiri, and Kuppan Pattar, because this European officer in Kashi is somebody who has studied Sanskrit, and he is very much in admiration of Sanskrit scholars. So he used to keep calling Sanskrit scholars to his house to talk to them, to have academic discussions with them, so scholarly discussions with them. So thus he had called Shivadas Pandit, and Shivadas Pandit had introduced him to Kubera Nambudiri. So when Joseph the planter goes there, these people are there, but Joseph has never met Kubera Nambudiri, so he doesn't recognize him. But there is a servant of Joseph called Raman, who is a Pulaya servant. he knows what had happened. He was there actually when all these incidents had happened, and he is very angry with the Nambudiri for having killed Marathan, and he immediately tells Joseph that this is Kubera Nambudiri, and immediately they all found, immediately the police come and arrest Kubera Nambudiri and they take him back to Malabar. So when Nambudiri goes back, again he is taken into custody, and a trial begins against him. So a lot of people come and speak. Now there is a lot of discussion about the trial as well. Who are the different people who was speaking on either side? So on the government side, that is on the prosecution side, there are a lot of people, including the enemies of Kubera Nambudiri, and the people like the Mapla, who had Kuttu Hassan Mapla, who had given the case initially, and as well as many other people are there to speak on the prosecution side, and witnesses have been called who had seen Ramankutti hitting Marathan, and who had seen Ramankutti and Kuberan Nambudiri walking together in that area, all these things. And Marathan's mother was no longer alive. Only one brother of his called Kuttan was there, and Kuttan was also ready to give his testimony against the Nambudiri. And there are so many pieces of evidence, so many testimonies. Even Ramankutti Nambyar agrees to testify against the Nambudiri, because he has been suffering in jail for all these years while the Nambudiri had escaped, and he feels that the Nambudiri and his vakil, his lawyers, never tried to help Ramankutti. So even though Ramankutti had only been obeying the orders of the Nambudiri, even though he had been loyal to the Nambudiri, he felt that the Nambudiri never helped him. So he also testified against the Nambudiri and said that Nambudiri was responsible for everything. So all these things happened, and initially there was one judge who was hearing this case. He was a very irritable person, but it is sure, the author says that if he had continued with the case, he would have definitely convicted the Nambudiri immediately, and the Nambudiri would have gone through so many more problems. But somehow in between, the judge changed and a new judge came. And that judge was very compassionate to the Nambudiri. So even while listening to the case, he made sure that the Nambudiri will get food from food that is made by other Nambudiris from in temples or something, so that he will not lose his caste. അന്ന് കാലത്ത് ഈ നമ്പൂതിരിയുടെ വിശ്വാസം എന്തായെന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ മറ്റ് ബ്രാഹ്മിൺസ് കുക്ക് ചെയ്ത ഫുഡ് തന്നെ കഴിച്ചില്ലെങ്കിൽ, വേറെ ഏതെങ്കിലും കമ്മ്യൂണിറ്റിയിലെ ആളുകൾ കഴിച്ചില്ലെങ്കിൽ അയാളുടെ he will become an outcast, he will lose his caste എന്നായിരുന്നു. അപ്പൊ അതുപോലും അറിഞ്ഞിട്ട് ശരിക്കും ഒരു ജഡ്ജ് ഇതൊന്നും ചെയ്യേണ്ട ആവശ്യമില്ല. But that judge actually was very compassionate towards the Nambudiri, and he helped him to get food. But he was also conducting the case in a very objective manner. So all these people came and spoke, and then Subhadra was called to the court. Subhadra and her children came, and that is when the Nambudiri realized that what had happened to his daughter, because he thought, he was very sad that his daughter was excommunicated. He and Subhadra's husband, Yajna Nambudiri, thought that Subhadra has been lost to them forever. They thought that she might have been killed, or she might not have been able to survive in the streets. But then they realized that she has been actually, she was taken in by the German missionary, and she and her children had a good life. They had a good education, and Subhadra was even able to make a living, earn a living as a school teacher, and she was able to educate all her children. And then this goes on, and then finally what happens is that, so the German missionary comes, his name is Mr. Miller. He comes and many things happen, and ultimately, however, it is revealed that the body they found was not that of Marathan, but somebody else altogether, and the judge reveals that he was actually Marathan. So the judge, his name is, he's a Christian, and his name is Jesu Dasan. But actually, he was the same Pulaya boy, Marathan, who had been hit by Ramankutti, but he had not died. He had just fallen unconscious into the field. And after Ramankutti went away, somebody came and revived him. And then he got up and he was very scared to go back home because he thought that the Nambudiri's people will come and beat him up again. So he ran away from there and somehow he reached Kozhikode and he met this German missionary who took him in, and he was able to, so they realized, the missionaries were very happy with him because initially they just thought they will give him some job, and he was ready to convert to Christianity because he was afraid that he will be caught by the Nambudiri and his people, and he thought that he will be safer if he converts to Christianity. But the missionaries realize that he is very smart, so they give him education, and he got first prize in his all his he was, first rank in all his exams. Then he was sent to Madras to study, and he studied all those. He went to greater and greater heights, and ultimately he became a judge. So that is a story. It's a long story about how he goes to each step of his education. But with the help of these missionaries, and because he had converted and changed his name to Jesudasan, he actually he gained education and he became a judge. And not just did he become a very young judge, he has also got married again through the help of this German missionary. He got married to Subhadra's daughter Saraswati. So we said that Subhadra had 3 children. One of them is a daughter named Saraswati, and this is also another dimension of the title, that is Saraswativijayam, that by becoming educated, the Dalit boy Marathan the Pulaya boy Marathan was able to attain such a high status that he was able to marry Subhadra's daughter Saraswati, who was the granddaughter of Kubera Nambudiri, who had been his enemy earlier. So Kubera Nambudiri, yala paattu polum kekkan paadilla. That is actually, it will make him an outcast ennu vicharichittu. That will pollute him ennu vicharichu talliya ee Marathan pinnീട് through English education, through missionary education, he became a judge, and he was even able to marry Saraswati, who was the granddaughter of Kuberan Nambudiri. And all this is revealed in the courthouse. And when it is revealed that no murder had actually taken place, then Kuberan Nambudiri and Kuberan Nambudiri and this Ramankutti Nambiar are let free, and Kubera Nambudiri is able to reunite once more with his daughter and his grandchildren, and he apologizes to the judge, to Jesudasan, but he says there is nothing to apologize, it is all okay. And Yajna Nambudiri, who was the husband of Subhadra, was very happy to be reunited with Subhadra, and he goes and says that I was always concerned about you. I always wanted to find you, but I never knew what to do. And he apologizes for his inability to protect his wife and his children from these kind of horrible social customs. And Subhadra also realizes that Yajna Nambudiri had been under a lot of pressure to get married after Subhadra was excommunicated, but he refused because he still considered Subhadra as his wife. So he was unable to get married to anybody. So now that they met each other, he went and he goes and apologizes to Subhadra, and Subhadra again says there is nothing to worry about because I have also considered you my husband all this while. And then there is a scene where they are all meeting at Subhadra's place, and everybody sits, but Subhadra refuses to sit because her husband is there in front of her, and she will not sit in front of her husband. But Yajna Nambudiri says we should change this custom. Because this is a custom in the Brahmin household, but I no longer want to be a Brahmin because while remaining a Brahmin, I was not able to protect my wife and children. Now that I have gained you back, I too want to convert to Christianity. And among the Christians, there is no such custom that a wife should not sit in front of her husband. So you should also sit in front of me. And there is a hint that they will have a much more equal relationship now when Yajna Nambudiri converts to Christianity. So they are now reunited. Everybody is happy, and Kuberan Nambudiri also goes back to his wife Sri Devi, and everybody is again happy at the end. And what we realize is that by the end, Kubera Nambudiri, through as a result of his travels and as a result of meeting many different kinds of scholars in Kashi, realized that his own attitude towards life, the attitude that everything should be on the basis of Manusmriti, everything should be on the basis of scriptures. So his casteist attitude was wrong. And അയാൾക്ക് മനസ്സിലായി മറ്റ് ഇയാളെക്കാളും വിവരമുള്ള അല്ലെങ്കിൽ മറ്റു സ്കോളേഴ്സുമായിട്ട് ഒരുപാട് സംവദിച്ചതിന് ശേഷം ഇയാളുടെ തന്നെ ആറ്റിറ്റ്യൂഡ്സ് എല്ലാം തെറ്റാണെന്ന് അയാൾക്ക് മനസ്സിലായി. ആൻഡ് കാശിയിൽ നിന്നിട്ട് ബ്രഹ്മസമാജ്, ആര്യ സമാജ് പോലുള്ള സോഷ്യൽ റിഫോം മൂവ്മെന്റ്സ് നടക്കുന്നുണ്ടായിരുന്നു. അതിന്റെ ആളുകളുമൊക്കെ ആയിട്ട് ഇടപഴകി മറ്റ് കമ്മ്യൂണിറ്റിയിലുള്ള ആൾക്കാരുമായിട്ട് ഒരുപാട് ഇടപഴകിയതിനു ശേഷം ഇയാൾക്കൊരു മാനസാന്തരം വരികയാണ്. ഹി റിയലൈസസ് ദാറ്റ് എവറിത്തിങ് ഹി ഡിഡ് വാസ് റോങ്. സോ അൾട്ടിമേറ്റ്ലി ഈവൻ ദോ ഹി വാസ് നോട്ട് punished by the court, we realized that these 15 years were kind of, on the one hand, a kind of punishment for him, because he had to stay always afraid, that he was always afraid of being caught and taken back and even killed by the police. But at the same time, it was also a time of reformation and transformation for the Nambudiri, because when he comes back, he is no longer the same person. He is a lot more, he has learned a lot more by interacting with all kinds of people. So that is basically the story of Saraswativijayam. Clear aano so far?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I will stop recording now for a